All right, so we're going to solve equations that have the absolute value of x in them. Come on, Mr. King. There we go. Right, and what those two bars mean is the distance from 0, which is what we're going to fill in the next page. But as we're solving them, I want you to be able to explain to me why all of our equations today have not one, but two solutions. We've seen one solution, we've seen no solutions, and we've seen infinitely many. We haven't seen two. So you're going to get two answers, like x equals 2 and x equals 4. Okay, and I'm going to explain why myself so that you can understand. Realize that that's one part of it that I want you to be able to explain too. Okay? And then I'm also going to explain how some of them have no solution, which is going to be something that's not true, kind of like it was before. Okay? So, an absolute value, if you have x in between two bars, that's the same thing as saying the distance between x and 0. So, I think everybody's pretty familiar with 0 kind of being the middle of our graph. Then the absolute value is like how far are we away from the middle. Okay? But it doesn't matter what direction you go, the absolute value is just a distance. Meaning it doesn't matter if you go positive or negative, the distance is the same. So they will only equal positive numbers. Okay, so if you go 5 to the left, that's negative 5. You still went 5 away. That's all we care about is how far away you are. Okay? So for example, the absolute value of x equals 3. It's really just saying that x is 3 units away from 0. So we need to start at 0, and then we can go 3 units either direction. I'm going to kind of let everybody catch up on those words for a second. Okay, so if I start at 0, I almost messed that up. I can go 1, 2, 3, and I'm at 3. That's one answer. Or I can go to the left. 1, 2, 3. And that's an answer too. So if we say x has to be 3 units away from 0, it can either be 3 or negative 3. And I can do that with any number. It's going to be the same thing for all of the equations we have today. So when we're solving them, in order to get rid of these two bars, you have to say that whatever is inside equals positive that number and negative that number. So you don't change the number on the right, you just add a negative in front of it. And then you have your two solutions. Okay? What's going to happen is these are going to get just a little bit more complicated. We're going to actually have to solve. Okay? But good news is I have steps for you guys. And I want you to follow these two steps. Tomorrow we add the third step. Okay? So one of the reasons why I split the sections up is because today you're going to see the absolute value of x, but I might add something right here. And I might add something in front of it that you have to get rid of before it's by itself. So the first thing you have to do is isolate the absolute value. If instead of writing the words absolute value, you want to write this, that's fine with me. Some people like the words, some people like the symbols. Okay, then get rid of everything outside. That's what I'm trying to say there. So get rid of all of this, get rid of all of this, so that only the absolute value is on the side. Okay. Whatever's outside, get rid of it first. And I did that in the same color because that's one step. These are the same thing. I just know some of us don't relate well to the word isolate. Then you're going to set up your two equations, like the x equals 3 and the x equals negative 3, except for some of them are going to need to be solved afterwards, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. when you do those two equations, remember that one should be positive and one should be negative. Because an absolute value can go to the left or to the right. Okay. And then our last statement is some absolute values have no solution because an absolute value cannot equal a negative number. So if I give you something like the absolute value of x equals 4, negative 4, that would have no solution. Cross through it. Not true. Right? And when we get to problems like that, you get to write no solution and you don't have to solve the rest of it. Okay? Some people like the no solutions for that reason. Try again. Okay. Now I know that's a lot of words, a lot of like, here's what we're doing. Yay, finally got it. Okay. So this is our first example. I'm going to solve it. I got to get this by itself first, meaning I have to move the 4 and the 5. Treat it almost like the equation 5x minus 4 equals 36. And it doesn't look that much different than what we've been doing. We're going to add the 4 to both sides. And 36 plus 4, 40. Nice. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of the 5 because we want the absolute value to be the only thing left. Okay, and notice how I'm still writing the absolute value bars around it. Now let's divide by 5. And I still haven't done anything to get rid of those yet, so the bars are still there. Then, different color. Now is where it's by itself. The only thing you have left to do is get rid of the bars. So you're going to say x equals 8 and x equals negative 8. Those will not always be the same number, but today in 1.6 they will. In 1.7 you'll see some of the other ones where they're not the same. And so we're kind of starting off a little bit lighter. And that's it. Okay. We have 4 equations we're going to do. This is just the first one. Okay. How do I get rid of that 4? Multiply. Fractions are just division, so to get rid of them, you multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. These 4s on the left cross each other out. You do not actually multiply the 4 on the left side. You're just using that 4 and dropping it. Then we're going to subtract that 7. I don't think that step has anything too difficult. 12 minus 7 is 5. Then, to get rid of the bars, you have to say 5 and negative 5. And last time I wrote x equals twice. It's the same thing as doing this. I just want to show you another way. You can just say x equals 5 and negative 5 if you want. You can even do 5 comma negative 5 if you want. Just be careful because that starts to look like a point and we're not graphing it. Okay. Another fraction. When there is a small fraction, do I multiply first or subtract first? Guess what? I wanted to talk about this. You can do either one. I talked to you guys about subtracting first because the 7 is not part of the fraction. I'm going to show you how you could multiply first. Because some people are just like chomping at the bit to get rid of that fraction. That's fine, but you have to multiply it to everything. And since that 7 is not part of the fraction, you're going to have to multiply it by itself times the 2. And only these cross out. And I taught you guys to subtract the 7 first because I was trying to make it a little bit easier for you guys. But what happens sometimes when I do that is I'm not explaining to you that it's not necessarily wrong to multiply first. You just have an extra thing you have to multiply by. And then subtract your 4 to the other side. The absolute value of x equals 14. There we go. Everybody else knows I forgot my 1.
I thought we were just changing it.
Oh, what? Your 14s don't magically change into 4s too? I make mistakes too, guys. And then we have 12 or negative 12. Sometimes people ask me, is it 12 and negative 12 or 12 or negative 12? I don't care. It can be either one. Some people get upset when we say 12 and negative 12 because you can't be both at the same time. Semantics. Okay. Last one. I'm going to add the 10 first. For absolute values of x equal negative 18 plus 10, negative 8. I'm going to kind of move a little bit quicker through this one since it's our 4th one. Divide by that 4 because it is being multiplied right there. Absolute value of x equals negative 2. It's already negative. That's a problem. That's a no solution because it can't equal a negative number. Okay. And that's where some people ask me the question, well, if we get like x, absolute value of x equals 2, we have that number and then we make it negative. If it's already negative, do you also make it positive? My answer is no, because that is when you actually have your no solutions. Okay, so if you find yourself starting with a negative number and needing to switch it to a positive for your two answers, something's wrong. That's a no solution.